So the LCS Split 1 is done. The LCS season lock-in is complete, and these are my thoughts on the good, the bad, the liked, and the disliked. Starting off with good, I'm really happy that FlyQuest is running a development roster. It's really nice to see, because in the past you see some teams that were like, they would put together some shit roster. It would kind of do okay, maybe get like 5th or 4th, mid-tier. But then it's like, well, this roster's not going to win. It's not going to go to Worlds. What is even the point? So FlyQuest was like, hey, we can't recreate the super team, right? Can't make a team that can win this year. So let's make a development roster that's focusing more on long-term growth. Maybe they're going to look towards winning next year. And I think that's a great idea. I think more teams should do that, especially teams at the bottom, like Dignitas or maybe Sentinels, or maybe like, I guess Shopify, not Sentinels, sorry, Shopify, Dignitas should look at these kinds of teams and was like, hey, we should probably do that to invest in younger talent, invest in talent that hasn't really succeeded, and maybe develop long term and see maybe not 2026 but 2027, 2028. That's when we want to win. I feel like that makes more sense than paying for like washed up veterans or people that are like okay but not good, that's been around for a while. Not pair them with talent that could use that veteran leadership. I can understand if you had like, maybe 2 rookies and a bunch of like older veterans to help guide those rookies. I think that makes sense. But in terms of just having like, 5 veterans that kind of suck, I don't really understand. Another good is, I think Cloud9 and Sentinels look good for most of the split. Like, there are times, like, especially Cloud9 was like the most dominant team, right, for the whole like split, except for the grand finals. I think Lion leveling up also helped. For me, the 2 best teams, Cloud9 and Lion, will help push each other, help motivate each other, make each other better, and I think that's really important for a region like NA. You can't have one team being good. You kind of have to have 2 or 3 teams that are like, decent enough to challenge the best team to make them better. That's how you have a very competitive region. So I'm glad that Lion did step up. I think Inspired. Inspired is the kingmaker of NA right now. He's really, really good, and there's not really any jungler that can keep up to his level. So I'm glad that Lion is looking good, and hopefully that makes Sentinels and Cloud9 think about what they're doing, and maybe think about how they can do things differently or better. So talking about the bad, the first thing that comes to my mind is the visa delays. There's so many visa delays. Like, for example, even like Zamado couldn't even join Lion. They had to be let go because of the visa issues. We saw teams with players coming in really late. A lot of like Korean players, for example, like Hambach. Saw Ignar and FBI miss like the first game of the split because they were delayed. These things can hold a team back from developing. Not having like a month, I would say. Usually you need like a month before a split starts to practice and scrim, get to your full potential, or at least be able to get to your full potential by the end of the split. And not being able to do that and having to play with subs, rookie subs, that can hurt a team. So I'm kind of sad that that happened. Also, SR only changing 1 player and being like the worst team, not even getting a win, is pretty disappointing. SR had some moments of like, oh, maybe this team is competitive last year, even though Cloud9 did implode last year as well. It was like, maybe it could be hopeful. Maybe there's something that it could happen, like something can like grow. But instead, they just kind of look worse. They got Zinni, really hyped up rookie from LCK Challengers, and they just look bad. There's just nothing about him that like I could just say that's positive. Another bad is, I think, Cloud9 underperforming again and losing again. Cloud9 is a team that was looking really good, right? They were looking really good, really strong, beating everyone until the very, very end, where they just choke, fail, and they just don't get it. They just lose 3-1 to Lion, and it sucks. It sucks to see. They don't even have, max import slots, right? It's only Thanatos because Ven's like resident at this point. And they only, if you consider Ven an import, they only have 2 imports, which is like way less than all these other teams that have like 4 imports, 3 imports. So C9 underperforming with like a lot of NA talent is kind of sad. I do wish they were doing better because they looked really good at the start of the year, or for I guess for most of the split. But now they just lose to what's his face? Oh, sorry, I'm blanking a line at the very end, and that's kind of disappointing to see. And I hopefully that Cloud9 can find their problems and fix them, because last year they were also looking really good. And of course they fail at the finals. They fail even before the finals in Split 3, and it's just so depressing to watch. I hope that we have another strong team that can challenge Lion, because if NA is back to being a one-team region, or even a one-player region, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good in the long run. So hopefully they can fix that, and hopefully they can do something to get better. What I liked was that overall, we're seeing a lot more rookies getting a chance. I feel like that's good. Like, obviously, Zamado was going to get a chance, but he couldn't join. But, Cloud9 with their 3 rookies, the DSG having rookies, I feel like this is all, like, nice. I think it's good that Tier 2 is getting a chance, because I do think NA has talent. It's just that they never had a way to develop it, right? Even with in the past with the academy system, it was never utilized well. There's a lot of issues there. Maybe I could do a full video on that later on, but yeah, I'm just happy that we're seeing more and more NA talent, because I do believe there is talent. It's just hard to find, Yeah, it's hard to find. Another thing I liked was there's no terrible teams besides SR, really. Like, yeah, there's obviously there's always going to be a hierarchy, right? There'll be good teams, bad teams. Like, Dignitas is not that good. Team Liquid didn't look that great. DSG looked good at the start, but they kind of faltered. But I think overall, there's no teams that I was like, why are they even in the league? Like, this team is just like absolute dog shit. They're not doing anything. They're just getting ran over. Like, I guess in the past you would use like a rogue example from LEC, but we don't really have anything like that in the LCS, and I think that's good. Like, obviously not every team could be good as Lion, right? Teams are working with different budgets. There's no way DSG can put together a team like that. It's like money, expectations. But the fact that teams within their limitations were able to make a decent roster, the roster is somewhat good. I think that's nice. Obviously, I do wish some of these teams, like, Dignitas, would look towards more long-term growth, because I do think getting like older veterans that aren't doing so well, it's not good. But in terms of strength, it's all right. It makes the league more competitive, but that's something I liked, that teams overall were pretty good. In terms of things I disliked, I would say the format was kind of weird. Like, the pick your opponent stuff, I'm not really a big fan of. They didn't really utilize it. People were like, oh, you can trash talk, you can do this and that. Picking an opponent that you want to fuck over. Teams who didn't really do that. They were just trying to get as many wins as possible, picking the easiest build they could. There was no like really good storylines I can tell. Like, as a casual viewer, I wasn't really like invested into that. There was also the weird no tiebreaker stuff, where like, even though a lot of teams finished like 2-1, there wasn't like a way to see who was the second best team. We saw who was the best team with Cloud9, but then we didn't see who was second and third. That kind of made like picking your opponents was kind of weird, where Cloud9 was picking FlyQuest the first round, and I think that was kind of weird, because they did beat them in the pick your opponent stage, like the first group stage half. Seeing them play again in playoffs, like first round, I thought that was weird, but maybe the format, I just need to understand it more. Maybe I need to get used to it more. They did this format last year. It was also kind of like weird and bad, so I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. I don't know what you could do to fix it, make it better, but I think you have to think about it a little bit more. So I do think the fact that we have the most imports compared to like ever is kind of ridiculous to me, or at least less native players compared to the past. In the past, you'd have a lot of imports. Some teams would have like as many imports as possible, but I felt like you're getting a good balance between like NA talent and import talent. Now it kind of feels like teams are just trying to maximize as many imports as humanly possible, and that to me is kind of sad to see, especially with no proper tier 2. Again, I'll probably make a video about that, because I do think NA tier 2 messed up so hard that now you're trying to see you're seeing why having tier 2 is important. Because if you look at when NA was doing well, is when they had a tier 2. Even if it wasn't utilized as well, they still had one. Now with no proper tier 2, no NACL, no funding, no academy teams, we're seeing less NA talent, and it shows that you can't just rely on veterans and importing rookies to make a good team. Sometimes you need an NA talent that can do well and perform. So that's what I didn't like. So, overall, I think LCS was okay. I do think that they need to work on like telling stories a bit more. There are some things that, as a casual viewer, you need to bring viewers back after the LTA fiasco, the LCS, like branding kind of getting tarnished. Hopefully, they put more emphasis on winning LCS and how winning LCS is important. They don't really talk about international tournaments because that to me is what brings people down. Tell fun stories, have fun games. I think the LCS is looking much better this year compared to in the past.